Hi, welcome to this session of Paint This with Jerry Yarnell, right here at the Yarnell School of Fine Art. And as promised, we're going to, in these sessions, these little instructional things we're doing for the online school and some other instructional things, they're designed to be able to drill down in a little more detail, put a little more time and energy into more intricate understanding of specific things. Now, over the years, we've discussed all these things. Like for today, we're going to talk about perspective, understanding perspective. Now, many of you over the years that have taken lessons from me or been watching the TV show for the last 30 years know how big a problem that is. So I have written one book, had a couple of done one DVD or some, I've done some instructional things, but not at the level that we're going to focus on this now. I've got to, because every time I get students come into the studio, no matter what level you're at, and I've had some experienced professional artists that still do not understand how perspective works, when it works, how it works, why it works, what we use it for, when to use it, when not to use it, and all the understanding of the components of it. Perspective is great for understanding things like proportions, how to make a building look like it's standing up straight, how to get the proper angles on the walls, the doors, windows, chimneys, roof lines, patio. Perspective is so important. And unless you're an architect or some kind of a designer where perspective is needed in your career, you're going to have a hard time understanding it. So what we're going to do, we're going to use what we normally use for artists, and that's the 1 or 2 point perspective. Now, you've heard me talk about this before, but we're going to really go into a much more in-depth study of it here. So let's try to get started. Now, I know a lot of you say, oh, I'm disappointed, I wanted to paint. Remember, painting is important, but until you understand how to do certain things, you got to construct the painting. You got to design it before you can. Hey, you wouldn't want me to do brain surgery on your brain until I've learned how to do it, right? Same thing here. You don't want to paint until you understand what goes on. So this is part of it. If you're going to put buildings or man-made structures. Now, perspective is mostly designed for that, man-made structures. Now, in my latest book, some of you have this called Country Scenes. This is the one right here. Inside this book are some instructions on perspective. Now, it's not as comprehensive as I would like because you just can't do that in a book like this. You need to have someone sit down and show it to you. But this has several pages of perspective, how to create buildings sitting on a hill, below a hill, on the horizon line, flat ground, hilly ground. And I would recommend this to kind of reinforce what we're going to discuss in this session, but we're going to learn now how to really make it happen. Now, before we do that, I'm going to show you some photographs of some very simple buildings, and so you'll know what they are about, because remember, there are 2 types. For most landscape artists, and what we do, we're not architects, we're not doing designing an Empire State Building or the Sears Tower or anything like that. We just say we want an old barn or an old building or part of an old town or something. For example, this would be a 1 point perspective. We're going to discuss that first. 1 point perspective is where you have a building like this old gas station here, where you're looking straight on. Actually, this is not perspective at all, to be honest with you. It's just straight on. And you don't see the sides. So it really literally is not a truly 1 point perspective because it's just straight ahead. You can see a little bit of the side of the gas pumps. So that's where the 1 point, the front is straight and you have the side that's perspective. But you don't even see it on the building. You see a little bit on the side of the chimney there. So 1 point perspective would be where you see a little bit of the side or a lot of the side of a building, but the front is straight. All that has to do with where you're standing in relation to the object. So that would be really considered really not perspective. That's just a straight on view. Okay, so let's find another one here. Now here's one. Let's see. Let's go to this little old log cabin here. Now this is 2 point perspective, and I'm going to show you why, and we're going to drill down on this. I'm just showing you some little samples. This old cabin, see, this side is angled, see it? And this side's angled. The corner is what you look at, and if it goes this direction that way, and see it's angled, that's called 2 point. We're going to perspect both sides of the building. That makes sense to you? I want to really show you several different things. Here's a good one. See this old cabin? Once again, if you look at the right side of the building, see how it's angled down? The left side's angled down. Both sides are being perspected. The roof line, the chimney, the porch, everything's perspected. And I'm going to show you how to do that today or in this session. It's going to be fascinating, really fascinating. Now, in this one, this is a painting that I did some years ago of this old grist mill. This is one-point perspective in the sense that the front of it is not perspected. We're looking straight on at it, so to speak, and then all you see is the left side. That side is perspected. So you only need 1 point. That's called one-point perspective. 2-point perspective, you're going to need 2 points. I'm going to discuss those with you and show you what all that means. For some of you, this is all new. It's kind of like, that's a foreign language. I don't want to learn this. Well, if you come in here, say you come into a class, and I've had this happen just recently multiple times. As you become more involved in your painting and you want to add more things to your work, you know, you don't want to just do the same old landscape over and over and over and over. You want to add buildings and fun stuff. You need to know how to do these things, folks. So be patient with it. You'll love it. And just a little bit of knowledge goes a long ways in understanding things. Now look at this building, for instance. This is a standard building. If you look at the corner of the building, straight here, see how it angles to the right this way, downward. And on this side, it angles this way. That would be what? 2-point perspective. We're going to have a point on each side of it. And I'll show you again how that's going to work here in just a minute. And here's another one that's kind of cool. I love this great big old, I love old buildings. So this one's the same way. You have more or less straight on. So this side, we can't see any perspective because you're kind of looking at it straight on. Does that make sense to you? But this side, see how extreme that is? That's because I'm standing up here looking down on it a little bit. That'd be 1-point perspective. We're only going to perspect this side. Okay, that makes sense to you? So you can see those are the two different things, types of perspective. Now here's one. This is a simple building. I had already showed, that's why I have the lines on here. I'm going to show you how to do this later. But see, your understanding on this now is, see that part's going to be perspected, this side of the building, and then your vanishing point's out here. And that's how you get the angle correct. And there's different places you could put that. I'll have to show you how all that works here in a minute. And, oh man, this is just, okay, for instance, this one, look at this tall building here. This is, I think that's the Baseball Hall of Fame. I don't know that much about that stuff, but look at the extreme. See, this building is all the way down to the bottom of your canvas, so to speak. So it's got a long height right here, but see the extreme angle? So if you took that on out here, your horizon line, your vanishing point would be way out here. This would be way out here. So you would have a vanishing point on each side. That's because it's both sides are perspective. And you know it because of the way the angle is. If it's just straight on, you wouldn't see an angle, it'd just be flat. So that's when you kind of know when you're looking at a building. Now look at this old barn straight on. No perspective here. That's just a straight on shot because you could tell by the way the windows are all square. There's no angles, there's nothing to deal with. You just draw it as you see it, and there you have it. Put the building wherever you want it on your canvas. Backside the same way. It's just a straight shot of a building. Now let's show you this one here. This is kind of cool. I love this all this old stuff just makes me feel good. And you see this building here? See that angle? That angle? And these windows you could tell, and if you saw the row of bricks, they're angled this way. Now look what you've added. You've added a fence. Now the fence is also angling that way. So it's going to line up on the same horizon line, because there's only one horizon line, and the vanishing point, they'll all meet out here. So that makes your fence in proportion and the proper perspective in relation to the building. We'll talk about that as well. So, I've got several more examples here. I don't want to waste a lot of time on that, but I wanted to make sure this one is a good one to know, though, like you're down in a valley. Now, if you look at this is pretty interesting. This is like you're looking down. Look at the top of the roof here. See how it's going like this? Okay, where these lines meet, your horizon line would be back here. And so that's because of where you're looking at it, where you're standing, looking kind of down on it. So that's a whole different ball game, like you're looking on top, kind of almost an aerial view, like you're on a big cliff looking down on something. You can do that too.